Why the Mavericks need to add some playmaking this offseason after a tumultuous finish to their regular season. Kevin Gray, Tim Cato, Bobby Keller. Of course, we are DLLS Mavs. Got some things to talk about when it comes to the Mavericks and their playmaking abilities or lack thereof, Bobby, because this is a team after moving on from Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving suffering the torn ACL. A team devoid of playmaking needs to find some in order to get this thing back on track going into next season.
Yeah, and who they had on their roster this season is probably also not even who is going to be around next year. Like Spencer Dinwiddie, free agent. Dante Exum, free agent. Brandon Williams will be back. That's good. Jaden Hardy, I don't know if he'll be back or not. The Mavs might move on from him. And so, it's not just Kyrie's injury that they're going to have to replace. It's a lot of these guys. And what they had after Kyrie went out was just simply not good enough. So a couple quick stats right off the top. The Mavs, from March 5th to the end of the regular season, Kyrie got hurt on March 3rd. They ranked second from the bottom of the league in total passes made at 5,433. Those passes led to a below average quantified shot quality, so basically evaluating the quality of your look. The Mavs had a below average effective field goal percentage converting those shots, and they also turned the ball over at a very high rate, a top 10 rate on those pass attempts. So their passes weren't leading to good shots. Their passes were getting picked off a lot or sailing out of bounds or just leading to mistakes. And guys weren't converting the looks that they were getting. And that, to me, suggests that they had poor decision-making. They didn't have a lot of guys that could diagnose coverage, read the defense, evaluate the situation, and make the correct decision. Also, they didn't have big men to finish lobs. They didn't have a lot of shooting. So teams were able to just shrink the floor, put 3 or 4 bodies in the lane, and force these guys that are already maybe below average playmakers at the NBA level to make even tougher choices. So either you give Brandon Williams a lot more shooting and a lot more bigs and a lot more, easy ways to run offense, or you have to bring in some higher level guys because, the Mavs just simply don't have enough shooting and finishing and talent around these guards to make things happen.
Yeah, obviously Kyrie Irving will be back next season, or that is at least our expectation. Everything indicates that at some point he's going to be back. But the idea of December is probably way too soon. January, February, will it stretch on past the All-Star break? That's a huge amount of the season that Dallas is going to have to account for. They're going to have to make up for. They're going to have to find ways to have players who can create the advantages that now you're not going to get from your all-star, first ballot Hall of Fame type point guard who over the course of the season, and especially when Luka wasn't there, even after the trade, up until his injury, he was the guy creating those advantages. When you say that they weren't passing, after the Kyrie Irving injury, they had the second fewest passes in the NBA. What's the number one reason why you would make a pass? It's because you got a second player on you. It's because you drew a double or you drew a help defender.
Creating an advantage somewhere.
It's creating an advantage, and that means that if there's one player behind you, one player ahead of you, 2 players ahead of you, if there are 2 people guarding you and not the rest of your teammates have an advantage if you can find it. And so consistently, the way that you create advantages in that way is just by blowing by your guy, getting into the paint. Every team is going to try to stop a layup, and that's what Dallas is going to have to replicate. That's what they didn't have down the stretch of last season. There are players, there are big men. At times, Anthony Davis was able to create those things, but Anthony Davis is going to create them in a more static way, in a way that defenses can anticipate. A lot of the times when teams send doubles at post players, they choose how and when to send them. What's awesome about creating guards is you can't choose. You can't make that decision. You know how your rotations are going to go, but it's all based off the opponent. It's all based off the offense. Dallas didn't have enough of those players making defenses react to them. And they're going to have to find a way to get some of those players.
Yeah, they've got to find some guys that can put guys into rotation, because when you're able to get defenses into blenders, now you're starting to create advantages for yourself. And the Mavericks don't necessarily have that outside of Kyrie Irving. And when you don't have a gravitational force of a Luka Doncic or a Kyrie Irving to create those 4-on-3 advantages, now you're really putting more pressure on a lot of other guys to be able to not only facilitate, but also be able to find some of their offense on their own. And I think one of the things, Bobby, I was disappointed in, this past season, a lot more ball handling responsibilities were put on guys like PJ Washington, Najee Marshall coming in his first year. And at times it looked very, very sloppy in terms of their abilities to ball handle and find ways to get other guys involved. And when it did happen, the offense got clunky, it got messy, it got sloppy, and created a lack of rhythm that really just disrupted this offense in a lot of different ways. That needs to be corrected if you're going to get these guys into the positions that they need to be in order to flourish in the roles that they were honestly intended for when they first got to this team here.
I mean, all these guys are here to play alongside superstars, right? This is a team that is built to take advantage of advantages created by other people. Qualitatively, there's no way, I mean, I can think of one, but there's really no way that they're going to be able to replace Kyrie Irving for the first 40 or 50 or hopefully not much more than that games of next season. But you can create some of the things. You can recreate some of those advantages that he gives you by just bringing in more guys into the fold that aren't afraid to shoot the ball from anywhere on the floor and that have the simple awareness. I'm not looking for guys that can make Chris Paul level reads, right? You just need guys that can make these simple choices: pass, dribble, shoot, drive. You know, and guys that they have on this team this season can do one or two of those things. Spencer Dinwiddie will certainly dribble, he'll drive, and he'll shoot, but he's not necessarily above average relative to the rest of the league at those things. PJ Washington will drive. Najee Marshall, he'll drive.
Can I interrupt you?
But those guys won't shoot.
Yeah. And it's not just driving. Think about PJ Washington. Think about Najee Marshall. They are both very capable, very good at driving to score for themselves. But what they're doing in most of these instances is they're driving on their man. And then they're going up or over or around. Najee Marshall is getting a step on his guy to get a floater off. But that's not changing the way that the defense is playing him. That's not getting him all the way directly to the rim every time. Of course, sometimes. But more often than not, what these guys are doing is they're winning their one-on-one matchup. That's a different thing than forcing help defense, than changing how the defense is playing you. One player who did do that down the stretch, and we mentioned him, but I think he deserves a little bit more love here. I do think Dallas can plan around Brandon Williams, providing some of that. I think he showed enough. Last season, and obviously Brandon Williams, it took a while to get really in the rotation, really get going, finish the season really strong. And I think, just thinking he's going to step into the starting lineup, anything like that, that's way too much to ask for him. But it really stood out how much Brandon Williams did have that effect on the offense, just generally, just overall. When Anthony Davis was on the court last season and Brandon Williams was not, Dallas had a 113 or a little bit less than 113 offensive rating. That's bad. It's below average. It's honestly not as bad as I think it could be if you really go into next season with nobody else on the court. None of these other type of defense changing players. But when Brandon Williams was on there with Anthony Davis, 119 points per 100 possessions. Now that is a very good number. Now you're starting to get well above league average. That came out 91 possessions. There's a reason this is all very small sample size stuff.
A lot of them against not great competition, to be fair, too.
Yes, and that's why the small sample matters. It matters who you're going up against. It matters, the circumstances. March and April basketball is always weird. So take this all with a grain of salt. But the difference is just so stark. Okay, what if it was Anthony Davis on the court, Spencer Dinwiddie on the court, Brandon Williams off the court? Less than 110 points per 100 possessions.
Brutal. And Dinwiddie is the best court diagnoser on the team, in my opinion. But Brandon Williams has the ability to get places.
He has the ability to beat defenders. He has the ability to get in the paint and make a defense react. Spencer Dinwiddie, even though he's the best floor general, he's the likeliest person to see, a back, just like a lazy defense, somebody back cutting, somebody getting into the paint, making that read, making that pass. He's the best player at setting up the offense, getting the pass into the post-up player. And he can do all that. And it's still, because Dallas doesn't have any, reactive game changers, force players who force the defense to adapt to them. It doesn't matter.
No, that's why it's called a playmaker, not a passer. You got to go make a play. And there's so many ways that you can make a play in today's NBA with modern spacing rules and defense rules and all of these things. I mean, but the Mavs also need passing. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, they rank top 10, even top 5 in drives after Kyrie went down. These guys were just ramming their way to the rim, but they still ranked second from the bottom in passing. So, like you said, Tim, like guys like PJ, Najee, even Max Christie, they're putting the ball on the floor to go to the rim. But if the shot's not there, they don't know what to do. It's going to be a turnover.
And that's the thing with not having the kind of playmakers down the stretch that they needed to have, because I'm not overreacting to a Brandon Williams. I'm not going to overreact to a Max Christie. Even if these guys are making some plays, I'm not going to necessarily overreact to these guys, because in the end, some of these guys are going to be either playing over their head for that particular game, or they're not going to be able to show it consistently enough to where I have to specifically game plan for, I got to send more help to Brandon Williams. I got to send more help to some of these guys because of the plays that they're making. More importantly for me, too, is not only these playmakers creating offense for certain guys, but finding ways to get guys open shots as well, because this is a team that did not take a lot of three-pointers down the stretch as well. Who is going to generate the kind of open shots credibly from the three-point line to give themselves a chance to be able to keep up with some of these teams? We saw a couple of games down the stretch, particularly against the Brooklyn Nets, where they just could not keep up with them from the three-point line, and with their inability or deciding not to take more three-point shots. That, to me, is another big aspect of why they've got to find another playmaker and creator to give them wide open looks. If they're going to take as few as they are, they got to have as good of a look as they can to be able to have the best chance to knock some of those down next year as well.
When you have Klay Thompson, who's a catch-and-shoot three-point guy, you have Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively, at least for now, that are lob finishers. You have AD, who is a play finisher, post-up guy, maybe a face-up guy, but he's not a play starter. PJ, Najee, these are guys that can attack off bounds. You need something to start all of that. You need the guy to create the cracks that other players can then exploit.
Yeah. And even if Brandon Williams is able to be that, even if he does come into next season for Dallas and he just continues right where he left off, that's not enough. That will not be enough to keep Dallas afloat.
You need 4
Kyrie
of those
comes
guys.
back.
You need 5 of those guys.
Or find you another generational one. And then go from there.
They had 2, and they were like, that's too many. I don't want that.
Right, exactly. Mavericks got some work to do to find some playmakers this offseason. What it will look like, we will keep it chronicled right here on DLLS Mavs. Appreciate you joining us.